What's up, dedicated Dragon Ball denizens? I am Ryan, and we're here for another episode of the Hawks Dragon Ball Nest. I am excited for this deck today. I've been waiting all week and just really tinkering and finalizing and making little changes to this deck here, but we are going to be running a Gotenks focused deck with the blue Vegeta as the leader. And initially I was actually working on a totally different, like, maximum disruption blue Vegeta deck, which I may also get out there pretty soon because that was pretty good. And I'm like, you know what? I haven't really tried out this new Gotenks from FB04 and Ultra Limit. It seems like it could be a good card. It could not be. But you know what? Let's try it out. So I just kind of made a test deck with that Gotenks as the central focus there, just full of Trunks and Goten and Gotenks, and did surprisingly well. I was really surprised. It's also really fun, but it's also like super wacky. It's literally the wackiest deck I've ever played because what it's all about is like hand and drop manipulation, and what you'll find is in some ways, like, it has no synergy. A lot of times I'm going to get up to well over 7 cards in hand, which does not work with Vegeta as the leader. Does not work with blue Vegeta. You want to stay under 6, but you know what? It works, okay? What we do is we force our opponents into kind of using resources, and we just continue to defend and be a nuisance until we get down to that 7 cards. And then now we're later in the game when we're also getting other heavy hitters out there of ours, and we're able to really just start just attacking, and they're like, whoa, what just happened? So it's kind of like we do a full switch up at some point in the match. But it's also really good because there's tons of draw power, and there's tons of drop manipulation, whether it's getting cards into drop or whether it's getting them back out of drop, either directly to the field or into our hand with some of these Gotenks. So it's a super fun deck to play. So I want to get into how we're going to play that, why I'm including each card, and what the strengths and weaknesses of this deck are. Before we do, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can become part of the Hawks Nest. We are a fabulous flock of fearless folks who are passionate about pursuing our passions. Passionate about pursuing passions. I don't know, that was a little bit circular, but either way, doesn't matter. This is great. I love you all, and I'm ready to get into this. If you're not quite ready to fly yet, just hit that like button. We'll show up in your algorithm again. Leave me a comment. What do you think about this deck? Is this viable? Is this like, ooh, this is a hiddenly good deck? I've done pretty well. I've had some kind of hit and miss matches because it does take some kind of thinking and planning ahead to play. So I initially had really good results. Then I had kind of a time where maybe I tinkered a little bit too much with it. But I think I'm in a pretty good spot with it now. So let's see what it looks like. And here is the list here. I've got it up on screen. I tried to simplify the list a little bit to get it bigger, so I took out, you know, I've got like different alt art cards in here. You know, we've got 3 different versions of the same Gotenks and stuff. So I kind of changed that list up on screen. Hopefully I didn't make any errors, but I think I got it right. So we are going with Vegeta as the leader. So, you know, he's got his ability of 7 or fewer cards. He gets 15,000 power, so this bad boy is going to be hitting hard late in the game for leader. But the deck is really built around Gotenks. And let's have a look at the alt art one. This is a very nice card. Looks even better in person, which I do have it. So the deck is kind of going around this Gotenks, getting this Gotenks out onto the field. And it's doing a few things. So its permanent ability is if you have 10 or more cards in your drop, he's going to get 5,000 power. So now for a 4 drop, we've got 35k power. So that's pretty good. He's got some power to him. On play, we're going to place the top 2 cards of our deck into our drop. And then we get to choose one of our opponent's battle cards with 3 or less. Put it at the bottom of their deck. So solid. I mean, 3 or more, you're able to get a lot of cards out there. You know, a lot of the other cards you're wanting to bottom deck are also going to be 4 costs. So that's why we also have some Mai's in here, right? We'll just get straight into that. I'm going to jump around a little bit, not go quite in order. But the Mai is going to be able to help us do that. Choose one of their cards and reduce its cost by 1 for the turn, right? And you might be thinking, wow, that's a little bit hard, you know, 5 costs to play a Gotenks and a Mai to bottom deck a 4 cost. I don't know how I feel about that, but guess what? This is our other big part of this deck, and it makes it to where, one, we're throwing those Gotenks out there earlier than usual, because we can throw this Gotenks, which is from that FB02, and we could throw him out there, activate main, return this card to our owner's hand, which is awesome. We get it back to hand. He doesn't go to drop. If your leader is Vegeta, play up to 1 Gotenks with a cost of 4 from your hand to rest mode. Now before, this card wasn't that great because all we had was this Gotenks, which I'll get into in a bit. But now that we have this 4 cost Gotenks, oh my, he's back. This is good. And it's in rest mode, so on first thought, it's like, oh, that's not great. And honestly, it's not the best. Like, you obviously, if you can play him just straight from hand for the 4 cost, that's ideal. But we can use his ability. So a lot of times when you want to get rid of that 4 cost card and save some energy, you could throw in Gotenks. You can still attack with him if you want for only 20k. And then after that attack, we can return to hand. So for 4 energy, we can actually throw down a Mai, throw down this Gotenks, attack, return to hand, and then bottom deck one of their 4 cost cards. So it's a pretty good sequence there. And then hopefully we're going to be able to just defend that Gotenks. If you have to play him before you have 10 in drop, he's 30k, not ridiculously hard to defend, especially because you're usually going to be making that play earlier in the game when it's your opponent probably doesn't have that type of power to match yet. Or hopefully you have 10 cards in drop and he's at 35k. That's going to be pretty easy for you to defend as well. And because of all of these other cards, we've got pretty good draw power. We've got pretty good hand power, ability to get cards back from drop and in hand. So let's talk about some of the other pieces of this deck that make it nice. Our draw, you do want Trunks in here. And you want, one interesting thing that you're going to want to do is work on getting at least 1 Trunks and 1 Goten in your drop. At least 1 of each in there, right? Kind of thinking about that. So think about defends to getting them in drop. When you're playing Gotenks, it's going to mill 2 of your cards, but you don't want to rely on that. So that's what's pretty good. So you've got your Trunks that gives you draw power. Now this one is another really great card for this deck, which is the 2 cost Goten from FB03. Right? It's a 10k combo. It does have 15k as an attack, which actually can come in handy sometime to help you get your hand down to 7 cards, or just kind of be a little pesky nuisance, like a little fly, maybe getting some of your opponent's weaker cards out of there, getting their leader down if you want to kind of swarm. But usually we're not too worried about him as an attacker. Really what we're doing here is we're playing him to get a draw and then get him into drop, you know. So we've got that. And then we've got this Trunks. Now this Trunks is kind of, he's almost like a Swiss Army knife in this deck. He's going to help you self-awaken, right? That's a big thing there. That's his big thing. He's got 10k combo, so you can use him to combo, and that can be one of your Trunks you're getting into drop. And if you have 7 or fewer cards, he gets 10k power. This guy is a sneaky powerful card late in games to really like just get your opponent's hand power down, especially because you can sometimes play him directly from drop. He'll go into rest mode, but your opponent late in the game, a lot of times they're going to be going for your bigger cards and just leave him alone. So he's pretty good, you know, 10k combo, and don't worry about getting him into drop. He's not one that you really need to save. So that is pretty good there. So let's talk about why we want to get Trunks, Goten, and this Trunks into the drop. It's this other new Gotenks, which is this old one. It's like, oh man, he goes into him, he's old, he just wants to unfuse, right? So that, I mean, I just love how these cards play on this stuff sometimes, right? So what it is you could attack for 20k. Again, he's similar to that other Gotenks, right? But in this case, he does go into your drop. Remember, you do have to have 10 or more cards in the drop. I've made the mistake of doing this before. Otherwise, he just gets into drop for nothing. If you have 10 or more in drop, you could play up to 1 Goten with a cost of 2 or less, and up to 1 Trunks Youth with a cost of 2 or less from your drop into rest mode. So that is super good. The play I usually want to make, honestly, especially later in games, is I want to play both of these guys, because that's going to give us 2 draw. And then it's also going to make our opponents deal with them next turn. If they don't eliminate them from the field, then that's another 15k in combos. You know, whether maybe you want to attack with this guy, you could actually make him an attacker the turn after. 15, if they don't deal with either of these two, we're going to go 15, 5 more, that can attack a leader. And we just drew 2 cards. Think about that. So that's why this deck has all kinds of just crazy, wacky ways of making moves here, right? And then we've got Videl. And Videl is actually one of our few, probably the only, well, no, we've got Mai and Pilaf, one of our few non-Saiyan cards in this deck. And this one's just good to make sure that you're able to get cards back. The Videl can get pretty much anything up to the Gotenks, right? We can even get these bad boys back out of drop because they have Earthling in their special traits. So let's say you're forced to combo some of these guys away. Don't worry, we're going to get Videl, and she's going to help us to keep our hand up. Videl, honestly, too, is just such a great bait card for me. You know, I'm going to play her, and sometimes I'm playing her, like, when my hand is over 7, I'm just going to let her sit there for a while. Because eventually I may get over 7, or they're going to waste one of their methods of card elimination, whether bottom decking or minusing or whatever, to get rid of my Videl. It's not one of the best cards in this deck. You know, I want them to waste them on my Gotenks, or I don't want them to. So, you know, let's lure them into getting rid of this Videl. But if they leave it too, then great. We've got Videl to be able to grab anything we need back from our drop, which could be Pilaf, which could be Mai, which could be any of these guys over here. So great stuff. Then, you know, another good card to have in here, just because, is the original Gotenks. He is a 500 combo, one of the few non-10Ks in this whole deck, so combo power is another strength of this deck. But it's just another way to grab from drop, you know. This one is, once we play him, as long as we have 7 or fewer, we can add a Goten in Trunks with cost of 2 or less from drop. So let's say we don't have this guy, you know, but we do need, so we're late in game and we need cards back, we can just play him, get him, and we can grab 2 from drop, and then that can help us survive some turns. So a lot of times you're going to see that you can turn things around where your opponent thinks that they got you down. You're starting your turn with maybe 2 or 3 in hand, but you know, one of them is this one. You know, we can play him, KO him, draw 2 more cards. You know, we can turn things around pretty quickly in terms of hands, where we're just going to switch the game around quickly. Now, before I talk about these cards here, let's talk about the Galactic Donut, which is my only extra I'm playing. Just another really good one. This deck, despite having Vegeta, which is a really offensive-minded leader, you're honestly playing defense for quite some time. You know, you're just really disrupting your opponents up until you're getting into maybe like 6, 7 energy. You know, this is really rare. When I used to play Vegeta, you know, I'm usually ending things around turn 6 or 7 when I'm getting to 7 charge or so. Sometimes I don't even get to that. You know, on my double, I'm going to win or lose. But now with the draw power that this deck has, we're getting a lot of times up to 10 and 11 energy. So this is going to help us disrupt. Sometimes it is a challenge for us. Let's say we don't have a Mai and we're not able to bottom deck a 4 cost, or we've got a strong 5 cost out there like a double strike, or you know, especially like Broly's on those green decks. We can just disable them for a turn and help us to reset by drawing 2 cards, so that we can maybe deal with him next time, or just try to finish the game off next turn, because we know that we can't defend long. So at least give us some resources so that we can go on the offensive. So it kind of, usually you can get rid of that big top attacker for a turn, draw 2, and then get ready to give yourself enough defense for a turn, so that the turn after that we go on offensive. Or, you know, it's a pretty solid mid-game card too, to get us up over. You know, just thinking about the fact that this is another one that's going to get you over 7 in hand a lot. So sounds a little wacky, but hey, you got to do what you got to do. Zen-Oh, of course, I used to play 3 Zen-Ohs in here. You know, it'd be nice to have 3, but I think 2 is plenty. Just kind of consider that when we're getting towards charging and comboing. I really want to assess my opponent and where the board's at before I decide what to do with Zen-Oh. So I'm going to try to keep him in hand, but he really saves me a lot, this Zen-Oh, still, as often he does in blue, right? Now, this one is the Goku Black, right? And I don't like Goku Black. You know, he's just a bad person. I initially had Vegeta, the 5 cost, the double strike Vegeta in here, the original, because he does get that bottom deck of 4. But then somebody else gave me the idea. And I mean, look at this, right? On play, add 1 card with a cost of 4 or less from your drop to your hand. What are we going to add? Gotenks. And then when attacking, if we have 7 or fewer in hand, play up to 1 with 4 or less. So we can play that Gotenks yet again, and now we just made a move where we've got a 40k, and usually by the time you get to 6 charge, we've got 10 in drop, so we're able to drop out that Gotenks for 35k, and that's a lot to deal with for your opponents. That's a lot for them to deal with. He's a 6 cost card, so he's going to be pretty tough to bottom deck or things like that. So he's tough to deal with that 40k. So I think he's good to go. It does kind of, you know, put you on the fence of you know, bottom decking a 4 cost, but you know, he's usually going to be able to just KO that 4 cost card. Plus we've got a Gotenks, so we're just really going to smash them from there. So I think Goku Black is really the way to go. You can also consider getting the 5 cost Vegito, which we'll talk about in a minute. Now I've got one of these, and this is all you need. This is one of those cards that's like last ditch effort. Like if you get to the bottom of your deck, we're going to play him to close out the game. I've done it once, and it was rather magical, I'm not going to lie. Almost. The problem was on the first attack I won, so I kind of, it would have been nice if they like could defend that last attack, and then we're down to 0. I was down to 2 cards too, so I would have activate main, switched him to active, and he would have went up to 50k. But he's just a cool finisher. I mean, it's debatable. I've only played him once ever, so you know, it's arguable that there may be a better use of this card. But I mean, this deck is goofy enough. We've got to play him in here. So keep him there. You know, usually by the time you need him, you're going to get him in hand unless you mill him or he gets killed by a crit. You know, milling from our Gotenks. So he's just super cool to use and just a crazy finisher. But you know, I don't know. He fits in the deck, but it's debatable if you actually want him in there. Strategy for this deck is really, as I mentioned, it's hand and drop manipulation. Get what you need into your drop, keep what you need in your hand, get yourselves draw power when you need it, and all that good stuff. You know, making sure that we're having some Trunks and Goten in our drop, trying to get ourselves to 10 in drop, so that we can keep this bad boy with 35k attack. And that's what it is. You know, get him out. It's pretty easy to get him out if you can get your 3 cost Gotenks out there that returns himself to hand to get him. And, you know, it's okay to play him in rest mode. That's all right. A lot of times I prefer it, even if I can play him. You may want to just do it, but it depends on the battle. You know, if you want to get pressure and hit for 30k, it's a lot better sometimes to use that extra energy. But kind of think about that. So that's what it's about. Making sure your Goten and Trunks are in the drop, and then try to draw forever. You know, just get as much draw power as you can, even if it means that you have over 7 in hand and you're just hitting for 20k with Vegeta for a few turns, even when he's awakened. That's okay. I've found it, like, don't panic. When I was first playing this deck, trying to stay under 7 cards, I played much worse. It's better, like, it's okay to just attack. We're still putting pressure on our opponents. Even with the 20k hit, they've got to use at least 1 card to defend against. And as long as our hand is increasing and increasing, that's all right. Eventually, we are going to get down to 7 cards or less, and then we're going to be able to just really swarm them and destroy them, right? Yeah, we're really swarming, you know. There's a lot of low-cost cards that we're able to get, especially if we're continuously playing that 3-cost Goten and returning to hand for this Gotenks, we're a lot of times able to throw down some more trunks, use the 25k hitters if we have 7 or less, or just swarming down these 2-cost Goten that can deal damage, and really just force them to deal, force them to eliminate, force them to defend, and we can really go from there. Strengths and weaknesses of this deck. Strength is has ridiculous draw power. I haven't seen any other deck, maybe close to Androids or something like that, that have like as crazy of draw power as this one has. It's just really easy to draw, and if we even want to just play like super defensively, you know, there's so many different ways to get cards into hand that it's you can have a huge hand, which is just weird for Vegeta. So it really helps you to play defense and stay in games and draw out games, right? And your drop is a resource too, which is crazy to think about on there. You know, that's a strength of this, is thinking about what we want to get in drop. And it also means that sometimes you want to defend. You know, you're wanting to use a card in hand to get it into drop, which is going to kind of, it's a double thing. Your opponent wants to attack, like, hey, guess what? I wanted to get this Trunks in my drop anyway, so now I can defend for 10k. It's hard hitting late, you know, very hard hitting. If we can get that Goku Black out there and play that into a Gotenks, you know, that's going to hit hard. Plus, then we've got our Vegeta Lead, and late in the game, that might mean for 6 energy, or we might be able to deal 2 35k attacks and 1 40k. Like, whew, it's going to be hard. Your opponent is not going to be able to survive that for very long. And also, you know, not mentioned here too is it does have really good combo power. You know, we've got so many 10Ks in here. It's ridiculous. There's only a few 0Ks, which are obviously our 4 Gotenks, which we would never want to combo anyway. Our Goku Black and then our Vegito. We do have the 2 Videls. A lot of times I'm going to find myself charging those, at least just keeping 1 in hand. I don't really care too much about them. Maybe I should more. But I mean, that's a great strength. But the other strength too, it's got some weird synergy to it. I mean, there's just so much odd stuff, so many odd options that you can do there with our Gotenks, that it's really weird. On the weakness end too, weird synergy though. You know, we're able to draw so much here, it's sometimes too much, to where it can hurt our leader. You know, leader abilities are, you know, this is why we're playing the leader, and to not be able to let Vegeta hit for 35k in a turn seems kind of like a waste sometimes of his ability. But the crazy thing is, you know, I thought about playing this same list with a different leader, and we really can't. You know, that's the problem, because this Gotenks, if your leader is Vegeta, play up to 1. So that kind of messes things up, and really destroys the biggest strength of this deck if you wanted to go with a different leader. But again, you know, if we're playing this as a long game, and if we can't get to 35k for quite some time with our leader, so be it. There's only a few other cards in here that need the 7 or less anyway. We have the Goten right here, so obviously you're not going to want to be playing him if you have 7 or fewer, which means I'm playing him as early as possible before I'm getting too high. And then obviously this one. But this is a good one too, because he's kind of a late game. He's helping us get our hand back. We're not going to play him anyway, you know, because he's only a 25k 4 drop. We usually would want to play this guy anyway. So that's kind of it for the most part. I mean, it has weird synergy. It does have few true attackers too, especially because sometimes we're going to be playing this guy for 20k and then going into a rest mode Gotenks. So that can kind of stymie you for a turn or two. And, you know, if you don't have those 10 in drop too, then it means that we're you know, he's only 30k, which is only a kind of mid. You know, the difference between 30 and 35 just feels huge in this game. So, you know, few real attackers. You know, this Trunks is a lot of times going to be sitting at 15k as well, because when we're playing him early, we're getting over those those 7 cards in hand too quickly. The other part too, you know, Gotenks is our main attacker. He's a 4-cost card. So he can be pretty easy to remove with opponent's abilities. So that can be an issue sometimes. You know, the good thing is because of all the draw power, we're oftentimes able to grab another one. And, you know, a lot of times I'm playing him 3 turns in a row. But sometimes it can be hard to find him. And if you're not able to find this Gotenks, you're not going to be able to do anything for a while. Because we're only got 2 Goku Blacks and he's a 6-drop. We don't have any other 4-cost attackers. We don't have any 5 attackers. We got nothing here. So that can be an issue. If you cannot find this Gotenks, it's going to be a long battle for you. It's going to be really long. But, you know, you can play defense. There's all kinds of ways to draw. But, you know, it can be tough. So that's a weakness of the deck sometimes. Let's talk about some other cards to think about in this deck. There's not a lot I really would change out. I mean, it just has really good synergy as is. You know, one thing to think about would probably be something like this Piccolo, because it is a Gotenks or extra searcher, but not really worth it. One cost for 500, rather to just play your Trunks out there or something else. Another one that I have thought about here, if I can find it, is it this one? Yes. Is this Goten? Because on play, if you have 10 or more cards in your drop, your leader gets 5k for the turn. It seems like a pretty good late game card to play. You're going to be at 7 or you're going to be at 10 in drop by then. And then you can get your Vegeta potentially to 40k, but it's only a 500 combo. He does have 20k as an attack, but I just couldn't find a fit for it. I did have that as one of my initial ones here. Here's another Trunks that you might think about if you want a return to hand, but I just don't like return to hand cards. I didn't even put it on this list up here, so you'll see. You know, another one to think about too, if we want to get a few more 4-cost cards in there, is the tried and true Gohan Adolescence, you know, because we're able to bottom deck 2, 3 or less cost cards. But this one's a tough one to get to work because it is one of those 7 or fewer cards. So that can be a challenge to get those 7 when we're playing him. And then he kind of becomes useless. He's only going to hit for 30k, which, you know, we have our Gotenks anyway. So I'm leaving him out as well. And then from there, I kind of mentioned too already, we have our Vegeta. You know, it is a pretty good card for bottom decking. There was 4 or less, and if you pair it up with a Mai, you can get yourself with a 5 or less. So it has come in handy for me a lot. I'm, to be honest, on the fence if I actually may want to swap out the Goku Black and take the loss of being able to play one of those others, you know, one of my Gotenks for him, because of that power of the bottom decking that Goku Black doesn't have. But I think that the Goku Black's the way to go. Another one here is we've got Vegito. You know, Vegito is always a nice one that we can restand. You do need 7 or fewer cards in hand. As I was waiting to get my Goku Blacks, I did have kind of 1 and 1 of these two, oddly enough, to see which one I liked. And I often found, you know, if I'm playing Vegito too early, I don't have 7 or fewer cards. So that's an issue. Alright, and then there's a couple extras I'd consider. I initially played with Galactic Donut, but I decided to just get the cards and throw more Mais in the deck. I had kind of 2 and 2. It's tough because, again, you know, that 15k has come in handy a lot on opponents' turns. But then, you know, 7 or fewer is the only way to draw. So sometimes I don't have that. So then from here, Sinister Sickle is just another good one for bottom decking 4 or less. That's going to help you deal with a lot of them. But it's just, I couldn't find room for anything. You know, I just couldn't find room for them. So that is mostly, well, it's not mostly it. That's the whole friggin' deck. And that will do it for this episode of the Hawks Dragon Ball Nest. I hope you enjoyed this great and goofy Gotenks deck. It is really crazy. You got to see it in action. So I really recommend you all to hit up the next video, which is going to be dropping on Saturday. Or if you're watching this later, just go find it in my videos. So you can see this in action. It's just such a comical deck. I find myself just cracking up on screen sometimes. So it's going to be nice to actually crack up while recording so that I have someone, people to laugh with. Because I'm like, what is going on with this? My opponent is probably like, what is this dude thinking? And then before they know it, they lost. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited. So make sure you tune in. But before you end this video, please hit that subscribe button if you want to become part of the Hawks Nest. We are a fabulous flock of fearless folks who love to do what we love. I love playing Dragon Ball. I'm excited to get into our next video. I'm excited to hear what you all think of this deck. You know, let me know in the comments. Is this one that we just need to throw in the bin and be like, Ryan, you have gone too far? Before you asked if it could be done, you should have asked if it should be done. I don't ask those questions, okay? I ask if it can be done, and I ask if it can be competitive, and I think this could be a competitive deck. So anyway, I'll see y'all next time. If you're not ready to fly, though, please hit that like button. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this video, and hopefully we will show up in an algorithm near you. But until then, see you next time.